My name is Kshitij, and I'm the founder and photographer of Humans of Singapore. Now, what I'll be talking about today is a little bit about what I learned in the process of doing Humans of Singapore. And what I learned wasn't necessarily something that I was doing while I was out taking pictures. Rather, it was when I was actually putting those pictures up on Facebook. Because once I started putting up those pictures on Facebook, that's when I kind of started noticing what's actually out there that people are looking at. What is it that people are actually liking and commenting and doing on Facebook? Like, what's on top of my newsfeed? And what I noticed is that it was always these outrageous, out of the world stories, which always made it to the top of my newsfeed, like the Little India riots or the musings of an angsty teenager. And, and that's fine. Like, it's perfectly fine if these things make the news, because ultimately that's what news is about. News is like the outrages, the extreme, the stuff which like you won't really find about, but when you do, you want to read more about it. That's why it's called news. The problem though is that the moment you come back home from like a long day at work, you're basically seeing a highlight reel of what the world has to offer. So basically when you come back, what Facebook's algorithms are telling you is that the world looks something like this, or like this. Whereas the world probably has a lot more to offer, which could be something like this, or like this. Now the funny thing is that when I started Humans of Singapore, I kind of had the same issue, because I was always thinking about like the one big thing that I could like break as part of my page. What is like the one big story which would go viral, which would bring me to like stardom and make me famous and everyone would start talking about me. Or I was always thinking about viral, 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 viral. I want one story, I want one story. So I kept doing it. Maybe in an year later and like 200 pictures later, I finally had my answer. Now, this is a picture of Fel. Fel, at the time I met her, was a single mother. She had 3 simultaneous jobs: bartending, dancing, and one more thing I can't remember. And her fiance had just left her. And on top of that, like all her money, all her savings were actually invested in her jewelry design business. So when I asked her like, so what was the saddest moment of your life? She said, this is the saddest moment of my life, but you know what? I'm doing what I can with what I have. And that's something, right? Because the first reaction that I had when I heard this was that, oh my God, I just like want to help her in some way. And I'm a very physical person. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give her a hug. But I knew her for like 5 minutes, so it didn't make sense. Yeah. But anyway, I got her contact information and then I went back home. Now this is Saturday, June 21st, 2014. At 11 p.m., my Facebook page looked something like this. 25,000 likes, maybe 400 to 500 likes per picture, about 5 to 10 comments per picture, and the follow-up responses were pretty bare minimal, like few Facebook messages here and there asking for advertising, right? Nothing special. So I scheduled the picture for the next day. It's a Sunday, and I put in my alarm for 1 p.m. like a responsible adult, and then I go home and sleep, right? Okay, everything's good. Then the next day at 12 p.m. I'm awoken by my phone, which is ringing and ringing and ringing. I'm like, this is not good news. It's 12 p.m. I look at my phone. There's like 5 missed calls from a friend of mine. There's maybe like 50 WhatsApp notifications. There's like 10 Facebook messages. And I know something's up. Okay, something's wrong. Then my friend calls again. I'm like, okay. So then I pick up the phone and she says, dude, the page exploded. And I'm like, okay, like I'm grumpy, I'm sleepy, and I'm thinking, okay, someone's hacked the page. There's like pornographic content all over the page. And something's wrong, you know. I'm freaking out. Okay, so then I open up my page, right? I'm like still under my comforter, and then I open up the page. Turns out the page indeed had exploded. So, Fel's picture went up at 11:30 a.m. Within half an hour, at 12 p.m., when I received the call, my page was at 30,000 likes. 5,000 likes above what it had started last night. Fel's picture itself had about 3,000 likes. And the picture itself had received maybe like 60 comments. And I can't even begin to recall the number of like separate messages that I was receiving on my own page. Now when you see something like this, the first reaction is, oh my God, viral. You know, like my dream come true. But see, that's the interesting part, because it wasn't the fact that it had received 3,000 likes and 60 comments. It was what these comments were about. Because Throughout the picture, people were actually offering help to Phil in some way or the other. It wasn't like some big Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign that was happening. No one was planning on raising like $1 million to help a single mother. They were just trying to contribute in some small little way or the other. Whether they were trying to reach out and find out what her jewelry was about, like whether they wanted to just like help showcase some of her jewelry in their own stores, or whether it was just like a bunch of friends who were like commenting on the page saying, Phil, it's gonna be alright, we're here for you, give me a call right now. And that's interesting, right? Because it was essentially like a large mass following which kept on buzzing throughout the day, trying to offer help in some small way or the other. By the end of the day, the website received maybe like 7,000 likes, right? I think it bumped up quite a bit. Phil's picture itself had about 8,000 likes by the end of the day. 350 people shared her picture. Her store itself had received about 20 to 30 purchases. And by the end of the day, her own website, subfurrow.com, had actually crashed beyond repair. Okay, okay, that's not entirely true. It came back up next morning. Yeah. Anyway, the thing is, like, after the entire hustle bustle kind of calmed down, I got this like message from Phil because we've been talking the entire day, and she said, "Oh my God, thank you so much, thank you so much. My friends just called me to see if I was all right. My family didn't know so much was going on. Everyone's been too kind. Thank you." Now when you see something like this happen, like, you don't know how to react. The first thing you're thinking is that, oh, this is freaking awesome, right? But the next thing you think is that you just kind of put on like your cynical hat and you think, okay, this is never going to happen again. This was like a one-off. This is a black swan. It's never happening. It's great. It happened. Let's just like be realistic. And that's where the page has continued to surprise me again and again. And I ended the presentation. Oops. So this is a picture of Jamal. When I met Jamal in Tanjong Pagar, he never had a professional picture of himself taken ever. When I put up his picture, a girl actually went out of her way to get a picture of Jamal printed, framed it, and went all the way to Tanjong Pagar to actually gift it to him. It was nothing extreme, it was literally just printing out a picture, putting it in a frame and giving it to him. But she still did that. In the exact same way, in the exact same way, when I took a picture of this uncle, who actually happens to be deaf and he sells ice cream near Aljunied MRT. So when I took his picture and put it up, a lot of people just like asked where this uncle worked because they just wanted to go to him all the way to Aljunied MRT just to like buy ice cream from him. It was nothing big. It wasn't something extreme. It wasn't like raising another $1 million. It was literally just to buy ice cream from him, right? In the exact same way, when I click the button, nothing works. Yeah. In the exact same way, when I took a picture of this blind man who told me that like his wife supported him as he ran his massage parlor, a lot of people just asked me, oh, like, where does he work? Like, where can we find him? How can we support him? And it wasn't to donate any money to him. No, it was nothing of that sort. It was just to show some small appreciation of their respect and their effort and their token of appreciation towards him. They just wanted to go all the way to Bedok to take his services for just the once. And before like I give like more anecdotes of these, like I kind of want to make it a point to say that this doesn't mean that Singapore does not have its share of outrageous stories. Like the things that you see, the Little India Riots, the MSCs, all these things exist, and it's not like they don't. But just like Singapore has its own share of the homeless, the old, and the lonely, at the same time, Singapore also has its share of people willing to help the exact same people in some small way or the other, whether it's to take them out for a walk in Orchard, whether it's to help them up the stairs, or whether it's just to give a kind hand. And before like I kind of close off my talk, I want to give a small anecdote of myself. Now, this is basically when I was 12 years old. That's me, 12 years old, right? And I was undergoing middle school admissions at the time. Now, middle school admissions in India are super intense because essentially you're surrounded by these like 50, 60-year-old ladies who are peppering you with all sorts of questions about life and everything else, while your parents are kind of sitting behind in solidarity, just like hoping that the son gets through, right? So midway through like my conversation with the ladies, one of the ladies just like abruptly cuts me off and she looks at my dad square in the eye and she says, oh, why should we take your son? Like, what's so special about him, right? And my dad, just like in his usual like nonchalant manner, he just replies and says, "Oh, but because we're giving you a leader, right?" And the lady just immediately replies right back and she says, "Oh, but we make leaders, right? What's so great about this?" Right? Right? And I'm just this 12-year-old kid sitting in the middle and I'm thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna grow up to be a leader one way or the other. Right? And see that's the interesting part, right? Because throughout our lives, we kind of grow up with these ideas of like being big leaders. We grow up with these ideas of doing big things. Throughout our lives, we are surrounded by larger than life figures like Steve Jobs who just pepper us with the thought that we need to have big dreams, we need to have big visions, we need to work on big ideas and make big changes. But in the process of trying to make all these big changes, we kind of forget the smaller stuff. We forget that it's also easy and possible to help someone out in some small way or the other, just like all those people did. So the next time you're on the MRT or you're in the bus or you're just waiting for the queue for Lala, just say hi to the person next to you. Maybe ask how their day is going. It's a bit awkward, it's a bit intriguing, but at the same time, like, just a smile, a little bit of spare change, a little hug, just talking to your mother. Like, it doesn't hurt anyone. It's something small, but it might just go a long way. Thank you.